they came out this way, but they got to right there in that bend, and the rock was so hard.
Right.
They gave up on that and came back and went up this way.
That's right.
And went in.
Right.
Okay.
Now, when you start climbing this hill in the Bacon Strait, you'll notice off to the left up in here, at the foot of that hill. Now, you don't go to Kibler Valley Road.
There's a little creek right in there.
All right. Now, they went right up this hollow. See this hollow right here on your map? Because they went right up that hollow right there and crossed that right up there where the nuns live. And if you'll notice off to your left there is an indention still down there.
Okay.
Right there is where they crossed there. And it went on out there and down.
Follow that road right there.
Follow that road right down here.
Oh, okay. Because you see the trace of it. Okay. So you said they turned and came up this way.
Right. Came up. See, that's the hollow right there on the map. See the way it's drawn? The map's drawn there.
And they went right in like that.
Yeah, right. Right there. And see, here's your road going on up through there. You know, it didn't climb this hill like this. It went right up there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it got only about 3/4 of the way up the hill, up Bateman's Hill, and then bore to the left.
Right.
Through that little swag or hollow.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I was talking about this morning, where I thought they might went through there.
Yeah, that is it.
Now I got you.
Was there a big curve in here somewhere, or did it
Well,
just gradually kind of go?
I'm going to assume that they just made a gradual turn in there. That part right in here, I really don't know, because I've been through there when I was just a boy in the days.
Okay.
But it's been a real long time since I was right in that area right there.
Yeah, I got you now. But I would have never thought of doing that in a million years.
That explains why that part of the road was always, fairly straight in there. You
Yeah.
ride all the way to Clover or go the other way, and most of the road's crooked, and then they got about a mile in there and it's straight.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, it gets a little past Danube Church and the Y's right there in that bottom, and that's the end of the line right there.
That's it.
Right at that edge of the parking lot is where the Y began.
Yeah, on the left
Right.
side of the parking lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as you pass the church,
But see, Anthony
Draw the church on there.
Anthony grew up right there, and of course the railroad did come through there, but it stopped, and he of course wouldn't have any idea
All right,
that it
now
would
let's
have
see.
stopped.
Here's
Well, that's where he and I walked to, and we reached the point where it just looked like it just abruptly stopped. And we said, well, it was a big mudslide in there,
Right in
somebody
here,
done some
you know,
maybe
the-
that's where it started.
Here it is right.
That makes sense.
Big ditch.
right in about right there. And
Yep.
this
It
ditch
went right out there.
drains Jimmy's field right here.
Yeah.
Back in through here and off the parking lot here and drains it back to a culvert right here. Goes across the
Yeah.
road to the river here.
Right.
And that ditch line right there is where the bed of the train went into that bottom. And it's all in that bottom, somewhere all in that bottom. Where it was, I don't know.
So it took off about there.
Yeah, and see,
Cemetery's up somewhere
see my
about.
grandmother and granddad's buried in the cemetery up in
Yeah,
here.
the cemetery here.
Up in here, yeah.
There's
And then
another
there's,
cemetery down here.
yeah, and there's kind of a hill right back in here on this side there. And up in here is where those houses were.
Oh, that's where the houses were. Okay, I visualized them back
It goes
there.
right in here like this right here.
I got you.
And then right on up here is where Will Barnett lived. And, see now, that white house back here, from the church is the church. And that white house right there, see, that's where my dad grew up right there. In this white house right there.
Wasn't that the house where they people, when they rode the train for excursions, stopped at and they cooked meals and
That's
things
right,
like
my
that?
grandmother did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
This area was the part I was talking about that had what appeared to be the apple
Yeah,
trees. I thought
that's
maybe that's
right.
where they loaded the
No.
lumber, but you're saying that
they
they loaded
loaded
them all right in here.
All over in this area right here.
You got a picture of your grandmother?
Picture of my grandmother?
Now, is your grandmother, Mamie Collins?
No,
Mamie?
that's my aunt.
Aunt.
Yeah, that's my daddy's brother.
Oh.
My daddy's sister.
Gotcha. Okay, your dad's
My dad's sister.
Sister.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Jimmy and I are the only, well, I got another sister, living, but we're the only close relatives in that family now. And Jimmy lives in Richmond, and he's one real nice person.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you've ever met him or not.
No, but he's my brother-in-law.
He's your brother-in-law?
Jimmy Collins, your brother-in-law?
Yeah.
The one lives in Midlothian?
Okay, it's getting a little too close.
did a canoe run here several weekends ago, and we went on up past where the school is. Directly across the road is 2 new cabins have been built. And a man and woman lived there, and she told me about Mr. Collins and all, and she told me about this school and everything about that. And so that's how, and she gave me his address, Mr. Collins, and his email address. I didn't know it was connected to you.
So you have to watch what you say, though.
So now I gotta be careful with that email I write.
That's right.
Do you have any?
Jimmy is one real nice person.
He is, isn't he? He's very, very nice.
Yes, indeed.
Do you have any pictures of any activity that took place here related to the railroad? You mentioned the dams or the camp houses or the Y or the.
I sure don't.
You don't have anything?
No. Don't have anything,
But like his grandmother, would you be interested in her if there was a picture of her?
Yeah. Since she ran this house and served the meals.
Well, there's one right here in the bush. I
One in
believe
the
Jimmy's
book, yeah. Are they the ones buried in the cemetery here?
Yeah, my grandmother and granddaddy.
Because he and I walked up through the cemetery.
Right here's my granddad. There's my grandmother. This is kind of Jimmy's son. This is my granddad. That's my grandmother. That's my mother. And that's my dad. And that's Jimmy's mother right there.
Oh, that's just what I call Miss Mamie.
Yeah.
Because I went to church with Miss Mamie when my wife and I were dating.
Yeah.
Harvey was still living, and so was Miss Mamie.
Right, yeah. Well, that was a name that she'd had for many years there,
Yes,
you know, but she went to church.
Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting.
Well, when they rode the train up there, on the excursions, they mentioned in some of the articles I've seen where they got out and sat in the field and enjoyed their lunches, music or whatever. Were they more or less in front of the house here, or
Yes, yeah.
behind the church maybe, or?
Well, more than likely they were right in this area, right in here.
It was like I say, right in here was where the trees were.
Right.
I saw seen in the photograph.
Now, I've talked to several people around town. Well, I think Mount Airy's, here's Mount Airy, because I've been there in Vicksburg,
Oh, yeah.
worked there on Vicksburg Light. Anyway, this man that run a hardware store, I was in there, married, yeah.
I heard of that connected to that railroad line during the very later years.
He told me, he says, he got to talking to me, and I told him where it was and everything. He says, your grandmother could do the best cooking of any person I believe I ever knew. He said, we rode the train up there and ate a meal. He said, now not just a sandwich like you did, but a full meal for a quarter.
Gosh.
And, but anyway, that was, I thought it was a real nice compliment to her, He still had good memories of it even in his old age, before he passed away.
I was wondering, could I use your sheet of paper?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Let's say this is Bateman's Straight here, and this is and we go about halfway up, or 3/4 up Bateman.
You're going toward Claudville?
And we're going toward actually Claudville, and let's say Prime Timber is up here, and Claudville is over here. And the current road is something like this, and this is Jerry Love's home here, and this goes to Kibler. And this is that road you were talking about. The old church is here. There's a road going this way. There's a power line going this way. All right. Now, the railroad came up Bateman's, and it turned, you said, to the left and went through a swag here.
Round.
And now, where did it go after?
Where Jerry lived?
Right, went behind Jerry's.
Yeah, went right up this hollow, right behind
There's a
Jerry's,
hollow,
and
okay.
there, and it crosses this road right
Oh, okay.
Between the house
now,
and the church.
the house and the church. Oh, that's where it went.
And then this
Yeah,
area is what you
yeah.
call Belcher's Hill right here.
there. Yeah, and it went on right here and down Belcher's
So
Hill.
Jerry's got that railroad at his house and his cabin.
Well, now the road that comes in, the Primland Road, does
Yeah,
that follow the old railroad bed, any? The road turns right in here, it comes in about right here, and there's a sign right here that says Prim Land or something.
Right, yeah.
Does that road go through that bottom there, follow into the railroad bed at all?
Well,
Or does the railroad sort of stay up on the
I really
hill?
don't know, to tell you the truth, because, see, and it was over in this section right through here, up to here, but I was out this way with my dad several times, because, see, the road, before this road going into Kibler Valley here now, came right up that place where the railroad used to go, right there. And then it got back over, came out what we call Bateman Strait. But anyway, that was.
And I follow you exactly there. I follow you exactly there.
So here's the old church, and here's Jerry's house.
Right.
And the railroad.
Just right past Jerry's house there on the left, you'll notice a field. And it's a pretty steep field. All right, and right that where that field is in the road, so you gotta, where did I cross it right here? So you got a field step down, you know, like this, and it would grow on his map. It would come in at an angle like this right here, coming right to here, and right in there. But the indentions in that right there, you can tell that where that was.
Now, when it left this road here, which is the current road, and went down into the valley, did it follow anything that you can remember from about right here where the current road is down into the valley?
Well, pretty close to where the road is today, the highway going up into Kibler Valley.
Oh, I see.
Going up into Kibler Valley.
Now, this is the road going up into Kibler Valley here.
Yeah.
So
this comes out, if you'll notice those power lines coming out of Kibler Valley, coming all the way out of Kibler Valley right there. And it come right up here and hit a hill right here. And right beside of it is that valley, like, you know, coming right out of this other road right there to that right. Of course, it's going into the main one, like it's going in like this right here.
Oh, okay.
It's going in like this to the road right there. And the dirt road coming out of Kibler Valley come up to there.
So the railroad actually curved around and went down where the current highway is today, going into Kibler.
Right.
Oh, that's a heck of a grade right there, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the hardest grade that I know of on the railroad track that I know.
Boy, that would have been rough pulling lumber out of there.
Well, they had a shade locomotive, which was made for that kind of terrain.
Yeah.
Where the gears were made for that. And then had a couple other different engines that weren't shades.
Yeah.
Been interesting to see how they negotiated that thing. Will they run double headers or not? You know, two engines on the same thing, like a push-pull or both of them on the front end.
That's a pretty steep grade right there.
Oh, yeah. But it's not really as steep once you get in there and you
There might be a little fragile a bit through there.
Yeah,
but I'm not really
It's not as steep.
Can you see any of this, like when the leaves fall, and somebody mentioned earlier about a light snowfall, for some reason or other would stick to a roadbed or a path or something, or a highway, longer than it will anywhere else? When that particular event happens, would you be able to see it pretty good, you reckon?
Oh, sure. When the leaves fall, if you wanted to take a hike right up through there, and you could walk right up through there to the other road, you know, that goes from off of Kibler Valley Road out there.
Is this 631 you're talking about here? It used to go on through them dead ends, or is that a little further down?
I don't know what number the road that is, but it's the first
Road to the right.
out.
I think it's 631. I rode out that road, the same one time. You don't go but a mile or two, and then of course you have to stop now because the Prim Land has all the property.
Yeah, 631.
So at some point that 631 would have crossed the old railroad.
Right, yeah, somewhere in there.
Somebody mentioned to me on that road there, it's been at least 17, 18 years ago, they recall, maybe longer. Someone down in Martinsville told me that somebody that lived, I think, on this 631 had an old box car out on their property. He thought maybe that's where it came from. But he said, I'm talking about 18 years ago or something now. It's probably gone now. I don't know whether you'd ever heard anything mentioned about something like that.
I haven't.
Probably used for tool shed, who knows, storage. Yeah.
Well, and you see that train used to run about a mile back of the house, you know, half, 3/4 mile mile right up Clark's Creek.
Yeah.
And about the time James and Tom were friends, I don't know whether Tom went with them or not, but James went with some of the other guys, and he walked up that railroad, and right over there lays a spike that he brought home out of the railroad, went up through there.
Was there anything here at, back to this one, at Kibler, was there like a water tank? Any other buildings there that you recall your father or grandfather talking about?
I'm sure there was, because I'd heard him talk about they would put water in the train there, but I never recall seeing it.
Well, you mentioned the two dams on the river. They would basically float the logs down the river to the area here, and then they'd have a crew take the logs out of the river and move them over to the area to load on the train. Did they do any cutting the lumber here, or they just load the logs here and put them on the train and send it on elsewhere to be cut?
Well, I know they moved logs, and they may have done some sawing also. I don't know about that, you know. But that was the operation. They just loaded the logs down the river, so I've been told. And they take the logs and move them into the area there where they could either load them or saw them or something. I don't know. They may have sawed some. I don't know.
Have you ever talked to anybody or know anything about pulling up in there, like you go on up the road past Mr. Barnum's store toward the power plant, say, all the lumber obviously came out of that area. Do you know any information or anything about how they done the processing of the lumber in there? Did they skid the lumber, if you know what I'm talking about? Did they use skidders to drag it down the mountains to the river and then float it on down? Is there any information you know of about how they done that, the crews that worked in the mountains?
No, I don't. But evidently they just, well, you know, some places up through there, the mountains was real close to the river, and it wouldn't take a whole lot to...
Just push it on over and roll.
Yeah, I've got information about one location, and I don't know exactly where, on up there past Mr. Barnum's store, where they built what's called a chute down the mountainside, like a V-shaped slide.
Yeah.
They would cut the logs and then
Send
send them on down to the river.
You could get it, do it that way.
You're moving that way, but I just wondered if like they'd cut any of the timber. I've seen pictures where they would do that too, cut the logs on the spot with a steam sawmill, and then put the lumber in the chute like that, send it down, float it down the river to the loading area. So I just wondered if you knew anything about any of that.
No, I don't. I didn't know anything in that relations to that at all, in that operation. Now, I have relatives that lives in Idaho, talking about the way they got those, in those V-shaped
Chutes.
Now, the first time that I went out there was after I got out of the Air Force in California. Then I stopped by to visit out there. And they had those in the mountains up there, floating those logs, and they called them a flume out there. And they would get those logs in those flumes and put water with it, and it floated all the way into the Snake River. They had a dam that caught the logs there, and they said they had 500 acres in the dam that caught the logs in, and they get the logs out. And they would saw them, and they were sawing a trainload of lumber a day. Now, this was in the 50s. And I called it a factory, and they called it a sawmill. But those flumes, as I said all of that to say that, you know, that they even used that into the 50s out there. But the second time I went back out there is I went up in pretty close to 60. They had done away with all of those and moving them in by truck, you know, and train. And they would dump them off in the catching pond.
Mr. Barnett had mentioned some time that, at some time or other, that he recalled the stories about him coming down the road by where his building is with oxens, have the lumber on wagons, and take it down to this area right here and load it on the train. So that's another reason I was asking, you know, if you knew anything about how all that was done.
No, I sure don't. Sure don't. Wish I did, wish I knew that.
That would have been very interesting. You're talking about the flumes and it shoots together, and then of course the river. How would they do that in the wintertime when all the water froze? You talk about scooting some lumber along, you know, that would really been something to see. I have a picture at home of some location where they used just 2 horses to load on like maybe 12 or 15 giant logs on a wagon, and they had rails on the bottom of the wagon instead of wheels like a giant sled. And they said once they got the horses moving, there was no problem because they just go along the river on the ice or the road on the ice and move that much lumber with just 2 horses to wherever they're going to take it to be sawed or loaded.
Because it was so
And
slick.
because it was so slick and the ice was so thick.
Wow.
So it'd be interesting to know how steep the mountains were in Kibler Valley when the water froze, how they climbed up there and done all that, because that was a kind of a job that didn't stop just because the weather got cold.
Oh, I know.
You probably heard of the little railroad at Cass, West Virginia, Cass Sink Railroad. That was an old logging railroad.
Right.
And they did a lot of that in that area. See, that operated up until 1960.
Right.
It's now a West Virginia State Park. And you still go up there and ride the train. They still have the lumber mill there, all this in very bad shape. The water tanks, all the old shade engines pretty much. And they go up the mountain there the way the logging trains used to go up and down. And you can see the places in the mountains there where they had those chutes and flumes built. They scoot the stuff down to the track and load it in the train and go back to Casswell to the lumber mill.
Now there was a guy, I have a shop on the Ward's Gap Road up there. This guy stopped by all the time, talked for a while, and one of the men stopped by and he'd been up there at some time to see that. I have a steam boiler up there for a shop. And we got in discussion about that, you know, and he says, I'll tell you where there's one at. Says, he's sitting over there near that place you was discussing. He says, sitting right out in the woods. He says, it's just real similar to what you got there. He says, I saw it up there when I was hunting. And I said, well, I don't believe I will if I move it out forward there.
I have a question about the post office at Kibler.
All right.
And the wooden building on every side of it. The post office, what year did that close and what year was it built? Do you know? I'm sure that's in the book, but I thought maybe you might have some more knowledge on that.
No, I don't know when it was built or when it was, what year it closed. I sure don't.
What about the unpainted wooden building beside it? It's a long, narrow building. If you know what I'm talking about, right beside the post office.
That's up there beside
Beside the Kibler post office. We get to Mr. Barnes' store. It's an
On the
old
left?
one floor on the left. It's an old unpainted
I
wooden
know
building.
the
Do you
one-
know
I
the
the
history
one
of
you're
that?
talking about.
You know the history of that building?
No, I don't. No.
I had heard one say that may have been the old commissary for the lumber mill and railroad at Kibler.
Well, it could have been. Possibly could have been. Now, my granddad, where this town was up in here, built a little store at that time while the train was running up in there in an area right here.
Next
Small store.
Next to the Y, more or less.
Yeah.
What was it called? What was the name of the store?
I don't know. I guess it's.
Jefferson store?
I guess it was.
Yeah.
I assume that's what it was. But anyway, it's there, and he operated that while the train was coming up there because it brings supplies. My son, that lives right above me, he's got a barn out back of his house, and part of the timber that was taken out of this is in that barn.
Okay. Well, I've seen an old picture taken like you stand up on the hill at Kibler, and I kind of draw what I remember, see if you can kind of fill me in on it. It's this is the track. Here's the church. Here's the Y. But the picture doesn't show the camp buildings over here that I don't think that you were talking about. So I don't know what year it was made. More or less in the area where the Y is, there's a store that sits here. There's a house that's set here, and then the church is probably a little further, actually. Just move it over a little bit further. There's was a house right here.
That's where my mother and daddy lived.
Okay, and then the house out here behind, which is the boarding house.
Yeah.
And right in
That's
here is where,
Jimmy's home is today.
okay, and right in here is where the picture shows what appears to be the apple or peach orchard. And then there was a building or something, seems like right in here, close to the trees, which may not
Possibly so, but I don't know. I don't
may have been
know.
related to that, but I'm just wondering, you know,
Well, now this could have been it right here.
the store you're talking
Could have
about?
been, it could have
Okay.
been. But there was a house right here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now there was,
May have been some other buildings, but
well,
that's,
now the house was just past.
it may have been on the other
Just
side.
past. The house was just past where they turn in right there. Because that's
Okay.
where my mother and daddy first lived when they got
Okay,
married.
all right, so it's a house here, and then the Y, and then the building, and then another house, and then the church. Okay. I'm just wondering possibly if this it's a long building right here.
Well, that was a long building that he had there. It possibly could have been right there.
Well, that's what I was getting to, was Mr. Barnum mentioned that there was a Wilson store building that was down the road from his store, and it got moved at some point. That's the old unpainted building I'm talking about. It's up here. And his store is here, and there's the post office.
Right.
And this is the building doesn't have any paint on it. It has some large doors on this
right,
side.
Right.
I'm wondering if that's the building that was down here and it got moved, because again, he said this building was on the other side of the road at some point, but we kind of thought it was up here near his house. But the road comes through here. There wouldn't have been a whole lot of space there for a long, narrow building next to the road there.
Well, now, I don't know about that, but the building, the old store building that my grandfather run was torn down by my dad.
So that would
And he brought it up here and put it in this barn. This next place on your left, the barn back off the road.
Big barn, the big red barn.
so this building would not have been this one.
If it's the same one, I'm thinking about.
It's brought up here, that would be it. Very interesting. Again, this building, you know, it's very, very old.
Oh, yeah.
And
Now,
I'm thinking it's probably got some connection to the early train history in this area
right
here.
I'm sure it possibly has there, but it could be this, or it could have been and my granddad had a house in another place. I mean, the building was another place, but I thought it was right beside, pretty close right there to in relationship to the church.
This particular picture that I'm referring to is actually over here at the museum in Stewart. It's like, say, somebody had been stood up here on the hill and looked down.
Right.
Took it. If I can get a copy made of it, I'll, get one to you, and maybe you can explain a little more in detail exactly what's in the picture.
Okay.
But when you look at it, you can see right in here what looks like part of the Y, but it's just like a dirt area, more or less.
Right.
The track had
Yeah.
done been removed when the picture's made.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a date on the picture when it was made, but there was a house, the boarding house was here, and then it seems like there was a little road or something went right up in here, and there was another house over in here.
Oh, that's a barn.
That's who? A barn?
No, a barn.
Barn.
You like to put hay in.
Okay, barn. Okay.
Hay barn.
Hay barn. Okay, I'm thinking about the word barn. B-A-R-N-E-S. Barn.
No.
Okay.
And then this road went right on by the house right here. And came right through here, right down there.
Okay.
Came right over here. And was a branch running right there beside of this, right there. And all this land was cleared up in here.
Yeah, on the
See,
picture
it
it
was
looks
all
like
up
it's,
in there, and all that
recently
land
been
was
cut.
cleared up in there, and this road went on up into a field back up there, and my granddad had a little blacksmith shop right there, and right in that area.
That building used to be still there. It was actually right behind Jimmy's house, isn't it?
Right behind Jimmy's house, so we go up the road just past the house on the right there. There was just a little bit of building there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, was that the blacksmith?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It was just a small building,
Yes, sir.
probably, I'm gonna say 12 to 20 or
Yeah.
something there.
I remember that.
Grinding wheel.
Yeah, Janice and I were dating, and we
Yeah.
were walking around the property.
Yeah.
We're talking 1973, 74.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have been.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if I can get a copy of that picture and get it to you. But it shows, like I say, all this in here, and then this here. And the church in the picture was a wooden building. Of course, they didn't brick it until, what, the 50s or so, 60s or something?
On up in the 60s, I'm thinking.
So, but it was,
Yeah,
you can
it's
see
on up
it
to
stands out real good. It's just a white,
Does it?
white building right in the